Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today, my guest is Lloyd Kempson. He's an athlete, running coach, broadcaster, and an entrepreneur. As you might expect, today's conversation centers a lot around running and how to get better at it. Lloyd shares with me his top 3 tips on how to become a better runner, why there is no such thing as the perfect running form, fueling protocols for training and on race day, when to incorporate cross-training, which machines and methods are best, exactly how many miles you should be running to prepare for a marathon, and whether or not it's realistic to be running a marathon at your 5K pace. Additionally, Lloyd shares with me his approach to nutrition and supplementation. We also delve into Lloyd's professional work and the multitude of projects he's involved in. Lloyd also opens up about his recent diagnosis with ADHD and depression. There is a lot to take from this episode. So whether or not you're a serious runner, high rocks athlete, or just want to get better at running or get started running, this is an amazing resource. If you were to engage someone like Lloyd's services, it would cost you an awful lot of money. So please take notes and enjoy my conversation with Lloyd Kempson. Tell me about the various projects that you're involved in. You seem like a busy guy.
Yeah, been told that a lot recently. You're busy, so busy. Yeah, doing a lot at the moment. Was actually on a podcast. Sorry, it wasn't a podcast. It was like an interview for a written article about 3 weeks ago, and it was all about entrepreneurship and income streams. And I got asked that question, and we worked out that I think I've got 11 separate jobs at the moment.
Wow.
But they all focus around running. So my one job is running, and within that, I do anything I can. But at the moment, it's mainly broadcasting, influencing, or influencer, commercial running coaching, so like run clubs, group sessions, things like that. And then I own a running media company, and within that involves podcast, press trips, branded content, race interviews, any type of media that fits in with whatever's going on at that time of year and events and brands and things like that. So, summarized, running.
I do running, lots of it.
Yeah.
I think that's it's a decent approach though, isn't it? If you're going to have like lots of different things going on, if they all interlink and feed into one another, then that's awesome. So
Yeah, well, it's like that because um, it's the thing I know most about. It's the thing I'm most comfortable speaking about. I don't get scared in any job role as long as it's focused around sport, but running specifically. You know, and in the last few years, I've found a bit of a skill that I can think quite quickly on my feet when it comes to speaking. So things like hosting panels and QAs and public speaking and whatever, for me, is really easy. So that's allowed me to get my foot in the door in certain jobs that it's probably not as easy for a lot of people, but I just find it really easy talking about sport. So it's lucky in a way. But then I suppose you find what you're good at and passionate about, and then does it really become work too much?
yeah. And for those that aren't familiar with your Instagram bio or your PRs, what's your 5K and your marathon time?
5K is 14 minutes 31 seconds, and my marathon personal best is 2 hours 29 minutes 59 seconds.
Wow, incredible! And when like what sort of level are you running at the moment? Are you at that level now? Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, my marathon PB was set 3 weeks ago,
Wow.
and my 5K PB was set in 2019 when I only ran track. So it was just loads of track races, predominantly training for that.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't train like that anymore. So my sort of race structure is slightly different. Now I'm doing the longer events. It's more 2 big marathons a year, few halves, maybe a 10K on the road, and track's more like a bit of fun. So I race far less now. So level wise, yeah, I'm going okay, going pretty well. Just stepped up to the marathon. So learning a new event. I've coached it for years. So the back teeth, I know about it, but actually doing it and applying yourself to it as an athlete is a new thing for me. I always say to people since I've done Manchester, I'm like, it's just a new sport, just completely new skill, completely new mindset. So I'm learning that and finding my feet, and yeah, it's good fun. It's a good journey.
Awesome. Was that Manchester Marathon?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. A few of my friends did that. I've signed up for next year.
it's wicked. It's great, great
So
race.
yeah, that'll be my first full marathon. I've done a few halves like over the years. I've got a half in 5 weeks. But I've been mainly. Are you familiar with High Rocks?
Yes, yes, I've got a few friends that do it.
Yeah, yeah. So I got into that um, almost a year ago now. So that's kind of consumed my life. But it's been nice actually to have like to be if you're sort of running based. So if you've always been quite a good runner, then you've got a bit of an edge to start with, and obviously you can add in the strength stuff. But yeah, I wanted to speak to you about what are the fundamentals when it comes to marathon training or longer distance training. Like, what about? So here's one thing I've been thinking about. So how can you get your 5K pace? Is it realistic to take your 5K pace and go right? I want to do that in a marathon. Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. But I'll preface that question and any coaching question that I get asked with the following. All questions regarding performance-based questions are all situational and dependent on so many different factors. So, for
Mm.
example, that question you asked me there, yes, of course it's possible. But if you ask that question and you run 15:20 for 5K and you want to run 15:25K pace for the marathon, well, that would then mean that you would be one of the best marathon runners in the world.
Yeah.
And currently, as a 5K runner, you're nowhere near the best 5K runners in the world. So is that possible? That then becomes a completely different conversation. And I would say maybe not, unless you are willing to basically live at altitude for 5 years, do 125 miles a week, and even then, maybe not hit it. So
Yeah.
it's always situational, and that's one thing for me as a coach. I always every time I get asked a coaching question, it's always a case of, well, it depends on this, and it depends on the person, it depends on this factor. But
Mm.
the fundamentals of training for a marathon are actually very, very similar to any event from 3K, 5K, and even
Mm.
for some 1500 meter track runners up. And I literally got back from a trip to St. Moritz 2 days ago, and I was out there mixing in with the on professional runners. One of the guys is a 5K runner, and I said to him, "Oh, has your training switched changed much since you stepped up from the 1500?" And he was like, "No, not really, because the 1500 is, I think it's off the top of my head, 85% or 92% aerobic. The
Mm.
5K is beyond that. The marathon is 99% aerobic. There's not a massive difference there." So he said that my training is very similar. It's just when we get nearer the races, it gets a little bit more specific. So the fundamentals for the marathon, it's an endurance event. It's the same whether you were doing an Ironman, same if you're doing a long swim, a long cycle, it's endurance. You have to have a massive engine. You have to have the biggest aerobic base possible before you even consider thinking about all of the fancy stuff, the sharper end things, the marathon specific pace. Because the marathon itself, another quote that I got recently from a good friend of mine, he said, the marathon's a conditioning race. That's what it
Mm.
is. If you look at it like that, it's how far you can get before you start to break down. How far can your body get internally through the efficiency of using your oxygen,
Mm.
managing your lactate levels, etc., before you start to slow down? How far your body's conditioned by using its glycogen stores and using carbohydrates and fats,
Mm.
how far that can get, how well you've trained that, and then how far you are conditioned physically your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, your joints, your bones, like how far you can get before your legs or your glutes give up, whatever it may be.
Mm.
So if you look at the marathon like that and any endurance race like that, the more conditioned you are for the event you're doing, the further you will get into the race at the level you want to get. And that is why you see so many people struggle with 10 kilometers to go, because they are only conditioned to get to 20 miles. They're not conditioned to get 26 miles.
And quite often in marathon training, right, you don't actually run up to marathon level on a plan. Why is that?
Shortest answer is because the risk to injury and not the risk to injury, but also risk of the body not recovering in time for the next training session or whatever. Once you go over generally 3 hours in duration, that risk skyrockets. But there have been cases where runners do run 26 miles in training. There are cases runners run further than 26 miles in training. There's over distance work as well. But you generally see that from very, very, very experienced runners that tend to be more towards the elite side of things. If you're a 6-hour marathon runner, you can't train for 6 hours in one go. That's just, you'd have to take a week off at least.
Yeah.
So for those runners that are sitting there thinking, okay, well, what do I do then? That's where that you then peel the onion slightly different. You think, okay, how can I still get my distance in and still get that physiological effect? And the way you do that is there's various ways. You do back-to-back long runs. You can split your training up across 3 or 4 days. It's very common for ultra runners to do that as well. If they're doing a 100-miler, I'm going to run 100 miles, but they may run 35 on the Saturday, 35 on the Sunday, with a break in between, of course, because they're then starting that second run far, far depleted and fatigued, which is then mimicking the race environment. So that's where running and marathon training and coaching comes into its own. And go back to that point of it being situational. It depends on the person you're dealing with, the goal they're working towards, their experience, injury history, medical history, so many factors. And then what happens is you build the training accordingly to them.
Yeah. So that total mileage counts more than doing it all in one sitting. Is
Yes and no. Yes, if we're using the question of the long run and how far you can get your long run. Again, it's situational in the sense of how long do we have to train for the marathon? If you come to me as an athlete and you've got 20 weeks, okay, and your main pain point is that you want to be able to build a distance so that you can run 20, 22, 24 miles in training comfortably. Okay, well then we're going to use a lot of this 20 weeks with that goal in mind. We've still got the bigger goal of the marathon goal as a big picture, but to almost create stepping stones towards that sub 4 or whatever you want to run, you need to be able to run 24 miles like that. So we're going to build training to hit that goal first. And then to hit that goal of running 24 miles in training, what other stepping stones do we need to make in training to get there? It's just always working backwards and breaking it down so that on the day, you're the best marathon runner you can be with the time you've got to train. And my biggest pain point right now is this quick get fit, quick scheme, crash course for marathon training. You see it from a lot of running coaches and running influencers. They're doing marathons all the time. And it's created this culture of this is acceptable, so not actually prepared correctly for the marathon. But that's why for me, I'm going to do 2 marathons a year. And I'm going to make sure that I train for 3 months for each one so that I've covered all bases.
Yeah. And what about ergs, like ski ergs, rowers, cross training as such? Like, what's your thoughts? Like, how can they impact your sort of aerobic? Like, look at them versus a zone 2 run. Obviously, you're going to get a different stimulus.
Yeah. So generally as a coach and as an athlete as well, I use heart rate for anything cross training because when you are supplementing running miles, so say we're supplementing an aerobic session, which would be a 1 hour easy run. You can also supplement higher intensity stuff. We'll touch on that in a second. But let's say I'm supplementing an hour easy run because maybe I'm coming off the back of an injury and I'm a little bit more fragile and I need to just keep my mileage quite low. But I want to run good marathon, so I've got to get those aerobic hours up. Okay, I'll do some cross training. What's a little bit less weight bearing? For me, my personal favourites to set as a coach, but also do, are elliptical, the bike, road bike, or static bike, aqua jogging, or swimming. Those four are the best cross training activities that are best for runners. And I'll even throw a fifth in there, but it's very uncommon, and that's the arc trainer. Not many gyms have got them. They've got them in America, but that's a completely different beast, but it's similar to elliptical. But basically, those are the ones that are best for aerobic training and the least weight bearing. If you go on the rower, there's a lot of resistance in your arms. Fine, you can still get your heart rate up, but I would argue and say that rowing is far less specific to elliptical or aqua jogging.
Yeah.
I think that when you're cross training to supplement training, you need to think, why am I doing this type of exercise? Am I supplementing an easy run? Okay, what sort of heart rate do I get up to? That's what I need to be mimicking on the elliptical. So for me, there's been years gone by where I've been quite injury prone and my running mileage has dropped. But to run the times I want to run, I know I've got to be doing more training. So I'd go on the elliptical and get my heart rate to the 140, 145, and I'd just sit there for 35, 45 minutes. And then that would then completely replace my double run for the day. So I'm taking impact off the body because I'm not going for another run. I'm still getting the aerobic benefit. My heart's working exactly the same level that it would be if I went for that run. So touch training is brilliant, and that's why we see a lot of triathletes that are so strong at running, because they're just aerobic animals. If you want to start using cross training for your higher intensity, it's exactly the same principle. Heart rate. So if you're going to do a threshold run, you're going to change that out to do a threshold session. Do a session in the pool or on the bike or whatever. Use the same heart rate. And that's why we see cyclists or triathletes, they will do threshold sessions on the bike. They will do threshold sessions and hard workouts in the pool. And then they'll do their running as well. And that's why they're strong runners, because aerobically they're so strong. But also, they're tapping the same zones that you would if you just predominantly ran throughout the weeks.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said the heart rate stuff, because I'm all about it. I love. I mean, I don't have a heart rate stuff. I've got a Whoop. But yeah, I proper geek out on the zones. So, what about? So, would you say? So, just putting all that together. So, do you think like a sensible approach would be to, if possible, get your mileage in on your legs, but if you notice that you're getting fatigued and sore legs, then switch it up and go and cross train until you start to recover?
I would say you need to find a process that works best for you, and you only get that by experience, trial and error, getting things right and getting things wrong. If you're a new runner, I can't give you an exact answer, because you kind of got to go out and find that out, and that's why you should put your shoes on and go for a run and figure it out. You get the answers you need from training. You always get the answers you need from training. When you did your first higher up to it, you finished it and you found a lot of stuff out about it in yourself.
Yeah.
And you were like, can't wait to apply that to my training for the next one. It's exactly the same. Getting things wrong is not negative all the time. You can really use that as a strength, because you're never going to get it right. How do you know if you got something right? How do you know that there's not something more out there, something better out there? But I think the fundamentals are, remember that it's an endurance event. And a lot of these races that we're talking about, predominantly what's hot right now, 5K and up, it's endurance, it's aerobic. And the coach at the on group in St. Moritz this week said, you need to, if you want to improve, you need to do more. Do as much as you can without getting injured, without overtraining. Now that might sound reckless, but again, this get quick fit scheme, this world where we live in, of doing as little as possible for maximum output. Scientifically, that is not how it works. It's not how it works. Like, you can only wring so much out of a sponge. You need to put in the hours. You can do those hours differently if you want, cross training, running, whatever. But the more you do, without getting injured, without breaking down, making sure you're recovering, fuel the body, physiologically, the more you're putting in. and the more you can then get out of it. So when we think of endurance training, I use it. This is the simplest way of breaking it down. Think of it as a pyramid. At the bottom, you've got your aerobic base. That's the big bit at the bottom. And the more time you put into that, the bigger your base is. If you cut that short by saying, I'm only going to do a 12-week marathon build, or I'm only going to do 6 weeks training, you cut your aerobic benefit short. Well, then the middle block, which is your threshold, and within that you've got 2 thresholds, but that's your threshold, your lactate threshold, the level that your body can remove waste and circulate oxygen to the muscles. That process is limited because you've limited your base, right? And then the bit at the top, the VO2 stuff, the real quick stuff, which isn't super specific for marathon, but is great for biomechanics, that's then limited because your middle block was limited and your bottom block was limited. Whereas if we actually spent a lot of time at the bottom, a lot of time, talk about 80-20, do that for a long time, completely spend as much time as possible working on that, then your middle zone and your top zone have so much more potential. Because if we limit the bottom, you're limiting your ceiling. And that's training in a nutshell. And then the sort of invisible section of that pyramid is the bit underneath everything. Conditioning, strength and conditioning, sleep, nutrition, recovery, mindset. That's the stuff that props up the pyramid. And that's my coaching philosophy in its simplest term. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
And it's all about patience and not being an idiot.
I liked what you said before about doing as much work as possible without getting injured. That's pretty much that's fitness, right? That's literally it.
Impossible task.
Yeah.
But we get injured. We get injured 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
We get in as runners or endurance athletes. We're not football players. We don't get trauma injuries and things like that, and impact injuries. Unless you run into a tree. But as endurance athletes, we get injured, and we can probably track that injury back to something, i.e., I really hit that workout last week, probably too hard, or I've not been sleeping quite well. I've been eating shit. I've been out on the piss a few times this week, and I'm really dehydrated, and I didn't actually eat breakfast for that workout or have any carbohydrates. So I'm just gassed, and I'm really hitting that red line. We can always, like I say, most times out of 10, we can track it back. It's rare, unless you're elite training at that top level, where you get an injury and it's like, oh, that was just bad luck. My muscle went, or you don't generally get a bone stress injury unless you've overdone it, or you've got a bone condition or something like that, or your diet shite. So we have to be accountable as runners and as athletes to ensure that we're consistently listening to our bodies and changing things and adapting things. And if you're working with a coach, you've got a strong relationship with your coach, then you will be able to do that with them, because you will be able to give them feedback and they will be able to gauge that feedback and understand what that then means for the training. If you're working for yourself and you're doing it all yourself, you have to be accountable, because if you're not, you just get it done, keep turning up, keep pushing through, keep grinding it out. At some point, your body will go nah. And that is when an injury will occur.
Yeah, I feel like the electrolyte balance is a big one. Like I noticed, like I don't drink anymore, but I had some sort of experiments with going back to drinking over the last few years, and every time I had any alcohol, like clockwork, I'd get a niggle. And
it's dehydration, I'd say.
Yeah, I really think it was. And yeah, I thankfully I hardly suffer with them these days, just because I'm constantly hydrated. And it's like, well, of course, yeah, your body's going to function, if you've got, all your electrolytes and stuff. What I want to ask you about, I don't know if there's something you have much knowledge on. Well, one of the things I do suffer with, unless I'm really nailing my electrolytes and my food and stuff, is I think that I have a great propensity to cramp when I'm sort of pushing myself. I've noticed compared to other athletes, like it's, and I wondered, are some people, I guess some people just lose salts more than others, right?
It's not always down to electrolytes and
Mm,
salts. You can be really hydrated well, taking on electrolytes. Your sodium levels are solid through,
mm,
mid-race fueling, pre-race fueling, whatever, and still get a cramp. Um, I'm really susceptible to cramps at the moment. I'm dealing with that as we go, and I'm working with a physio and a tailored strength program because my loading from my left to my right is completely different. The capacity that my right leg can take compared to my
mm.
left, the amount of weight that my right bears when I run compared to my left is off. My strength through my muscles in different movements is slightly off. Um, so you are right in saying that yes, salts are a massive part of it. Electrolytes and ensuring that you are topped up and doing that pre and during and post is important.
Mm.
Um, but there are also other reasons for cramps as well. If your hamstring if you're, for example, if your glute med is just not activated, if it's not turned on, if it's just not working because there's a slight weakness in an area of your glute, then your hamstring maybe takes more of the load. So then, because your hamstring takes more of the load, your adductor is screaming. So then after 30 Ks, your adductor cramps. That might not be because you haven't had an electrolyte. It might be because your glutes are fucked. So
I feel like you've been reading my physio notes.
yeah, mate, this is genuinely from my own experience. Like this literally happens to me. That happened for me in Manchester. Like this year, I thought I was struggling with hamstring tendonitis and a load of problems in there. I got ultrasound, no damage to the muscle, and then it was then my adductor that was an issue, and I was on it with all my electrolytes, etc. And for me, it was a load issue. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. So again, we spoke about how you should train for a marathon or endurance race, cross training, running, whatever. It's the same with injury management, electrolyte management, fueling. It's all so unique and always, it's like a Formula One car. They're always tweaking. They're always taking shit off, putting things on and whatever. And you only learn this by doing it, messing up, learning and experience.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, I had a bit of a light bulb moment because I was thinking about the times that certain times where I've had cramp and it's one sided. And then the other week, the first time ever, I had both of my quads lock up. So totally even, which obviously is a totally different thing. And then I traced it back. I'd been on holiday. I'd been eating like shit for like 4 or 5 days. So it's probably that, But again, it was
Probably
like
is.
it was evenly bearing. So then that suggests perhaps it's a chemical thing.
Potentially, yeah. I think like two things. My my knowledge when it comes to fueling, nutrition, um, energy balance, things like that is severely limited to either my own experience or athletes that I've coached. I'm not qualified in that
Mm,
side of the sport. So for me, it's always been a case of if I get a question or an experience from an athlete that I'm coaching, I would say, look, if I don't know the answer, and I don't feel confident in giving you the answer, I'll go and find it out. I'll go and try and speak to someone I know, the dietitian or whatever it is. So using that kind of black book. So and then the reason I'm sort of making that point is because since doing the marathon and training for it, I learned so much about that side of the sport from a different position of not giving the advice, taking the advice and doing it and feeling how that feeling felt and how my electrolyte balance was off here and it was okay here and how I was dehydrated here and whatever. It's honestly, I find it amazing. It's such a complex sport running. It's not as simple as just, people do say lace up your shoes and off you go. But when you start thinking about performance, running is a science. It literally is a science. So I think
mm,
that for runners that are listening that are thinking, I don't even consider my electrolytes when I train. Well, my advice is to not necessarily go and sign up to a course on electrolytes, but just do a bit of reading, just watch some YouTube stuff and start to think, how can I apply just 1% of these things to my running and do it for 6 weeks, see how it helps, and then adapt from there, tailor from there.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Going back to what I was saying before about, I asked you that question about a 5K pace into a marathon. Let me
Yeah.
phrase it slightly differently. Let's say I come to you. My 5K is 20 minutes, and I've got 6 months to do a marathon. How do you? And I'm happy to train 6, 7 days a week. What's your sort of approach to like working out a target, or do you not even like look at a target until someone's done the first marathon?
If you haven't done your first marathon, it's very easy for the target to be way misconstrued and off.
Mm,
9 times out of 10, runners will say, okay, it's my first marathon. I've done a 5K, I've done a 10K, or sub 4, because I've seen everyone talking about sub 4.
yeah.
It's easy for a coach to give that goal during the training. So what I would say to that athlete is that they're going to say, okay, I'm not going to focus on the finish time right now. We will tailor into that and specify into that a little bit later into the plan after you've done a few benchmark sessions and maybe a benchmark workout or race or whatever. But right now, I can't guarantee that you're going to run anywhere near that. There's too many unknowns right now.
Mm,
So let's just take your eyes off of that a second, bring you back into the room, and let's focus on the fundamentals. Let's work on those together because they sound far more achievable than a sub 4 marathon. They may be get good sleep, train 4 times a week, check in your coach twice a week. Won't. Let's hit the fundamentals. Do that for 4 weeks, then we'll have another conversation. And that's what I would say to that. But generalizing things, if you come to me and you say, right, I run a 20-minute 5K, and I want to run X time for the marathon, whatever that may be, I would still always go down the route of breaking it down and saying, okay, we've got 16 weeks. I'm going to break your training physically down into this amount of blocks. Might be 2 blocks, might be 3, might be 4, might be 5, who knows? Within those blocks, this is the ethos and ideology behind each one. These are my goals for you. This is how you need to apply yourself throughout these blocks. And per one, I'll check in with you so you know what you're doing for the next one. Now the marathon is not a 26-mile race. It's not a 16-week training block. It's 4 weeks. Let's have a chat in 4 weeks. That's all you need to focus on. And mentally breaking that down for a runner makes a distance so much more achievable in your mind.
mm,
And that's the same when you stand on the start line. You don't think, right, well, you shouldn't think, I'm going to run this race at 4 minutes per K. I'll see you at 42K. You need to be breaking it down. Okay, I'm doing it 5K splits, 10K splits. I'm going to take a gel every 5K. I'm going to make sure I have hydration every 5K. I'm going to try and run the first half in this, whatever it may be. Breaking it down as a coach not only makes the athlete feel more comfortable about it and makes it feel more achievable, but I also feel like it gives value in the sense of this is my ethos, this is what I'm thinking, so that you understand and you know why you're doing what you're doing.
mm.
And if you have that understanding, when an athlete has an understanding of why they're training and what they're working towards, that builds confidence. And it's scientifically proven that if you apply your confidence and happiness towards your movement, you'll be better at it. So happier runners, faster runner,
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? So many times like I try and like cue myself and what would this be like if it was easy, and just trying to just dial back on the effort sometimes, and I've found that's helped.
Oh, we're all guilty of that, mate. We're all
Yeah.
guilty of that. I went for a run this morning. I went for a run yesterday around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I ran 16 Ks. It's boiling hot. It's the first run I've done since the sun turned up in London. And I was like, fucking hell, I've gone too fast here. Why am I running so quick? And I did the classic, it's all right, I'll just grind it out. It's supposed to be an easy run. So, what an idiot. And I got about halfway in and I'm like, this is hard. This is really hard. It's supposed to be an easy run. And I'm not running quick because I'm clearly knackered from travel or whatever. So then got the run done. And then today's run, I wanted to run 12K and I only ran 7 because I'm so fatigued from yesterday. I'm not
Yeah.
recovered enough. And today I'm jogging and I'm thinking, if I'd have run yesterday's run at this pace and just dawdled along, I'd have been out around 12K today. And that conversation I've got in my mind and I had with myself, I'm able to realise these things and highlight these things because I've done it enough times now and I've made enough mistakes. But for a lot of runners, today's run, they'd have just done 12K, got it done, grind it out, and then the next day and the next day. and eventually you're just going to crash and burn. So one tip for you, if you want to run next time and you know it's supposed to be a certain effort, easy running, it's the easiest one to get wrong, and you know you're going too fast, stop. I tell people to stop, and they're like, what? I'm like, no, stop. Don't worry about your elapsed time. Stop your watch and take a 2-minute break. Sit on the bench and just sit there and think about what you're doing and have a word with yourself. Let your heart rate drop. Start again. Continue. Maybe you've got 20 minutes left, but make sure that you're going to say to yourself, right, for this next 20 minutes, I'm going to stop for 2 minutes. I'm going to tell myself, I'm going to set myself a goal. I'm going to slow down. And that works for me. And I think it works for a lot of runners because it's just, again, breaking things down rather than getting to the end of the run. You're like, oh, that was too hard. That was too fast.
Yeah, it's so funny because I went out yesterday and I was like, right, just easy run, zone 2, maybe like 10K-ish, and then I'm going to go straight in the sauna and I'm going to get a little bit more out of it. And I set off, and I remember I was 15 minutes in, and already the voices in my head is going, "You're only 15 minutes in, like what a pussy." like you're not going to do like 16Ks. And because I was feeling like, even though it's easy, I was kind of like, I'm a little bit tired, and of course that gets in your head, and then there's like this like beast that's kind of wanting you to go a bit harder. Anyway, so I kept up with it to about 50 minutes. I was strict zone 2, and then it starts creeping up, and then I couldn't bring it back down without just totally walking. And just like you said, I was like, right, no, I'm going to walk. I'm just going to walk back. I'm not going to smash into the zone 4. Well, I got lost, and then I realized I'm like, oh shit, I'm miles away from my car. So then I was like, right, fuck it, race pace. So I absolutely hammered it back to the car. And then, but I was talking to a guy this morning, and he said that on one of his marathon plans, he actually had that run, which is half zone 2 and half marathon pace for like 14, 15K or something. And I was like, so I just sort of fell across that one. So I was quite happy, and I feel okay today. Feel good.
My question is that when you got to that set point where you needed to walk, where you are creeping up into zone 4, well, clearly that zone 2 section, whether it said zone 2 on your watch or not, for that given day of how you were feeling, wasn't zone 2. Because if it was, then you'd have been able to go zone 2 for the whole run. And what I mean by that is that even on days where your heart rate is telling you you're in zone 2, if you're, so let's say your zone 2 is 140 beats per minute, or whatever it is, 140, it's a nice round number. 140 beats on a Friday may feel 5 times as hard as 140 beats on a Sunday. Heart's working the same, but it's not just your heart that controls how you're feeling, right? There's loads of shit in the body, right? Your mind, your body, your muscles, your joints, your bones, your diet, your hydration, all that shit. Recovery, sleep, blah, blah, blah. There's been runs where my heart rate will be higher on some days, yet it feels easier than it did the run yesterday when my heart rate was 20 beats lower.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you're training and you've got a goal for that training run, there's just sometimes when you've got to veer off of the data and go a little bit old school and go by feel or effort. If you want, and recovery runs are the easiest ones to do this because the goal for a recovery run is to recover. It's to actively recover. If you feel like you aren't doing that during the run or the exercise, regardless of what the watch is telling you, slow down to ensure you are. And that is why so many of the elites are so good and so consistent, because they're smart. They will slow down when they need to slow down because they know that the goal for today is to go easy, because in 2 days' time, I've got a hard session and I need to be specific for that. I need to be recovered for that. So as great as heart rate is, and as great as zones are, and yes, they're important to use, we also have to consider that day to day, our body is going to feel different at different heart rates. So just always be in tune with your body. What I would have done if I was you then, it's easy for me to say as a coach because I'm guilty of getting this wrong as well, is when you needed to take that walk, just walk for a couple of minutes and then just say, right, for the rest of this run, I'm going to run the distance I've got to run, but I'm going to run it to how I'm feeling. I'm not going to look at my watch.
Mm.
If I can focus on this for the next 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and I can say that I feel easy doing this and it feels like a zone 2 run, well then my body is operating to what its zone 2 is today. Whereas if I try and hit the script of what my watch is telling me, I may run too hard and I might not actually be hitting the goal I want to be hitting today. So there's sort of a multilingual approach to running all the time. And I think that runners need to be a little bit more fluid, flexible as well.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just trying, digesting what you said because I was thinking, what I was thinking yesterday, I was just thinking, oh right, okay, well if I get to like 45 minutes and then my heart rate starts to ramp up, is that a good indicator of my overall fitness? Because yeah,
But why is it ramping up?
I was thinking aerobic base limitation.
Well, if it's well, let's go simpler. Like we could always go really scientifically.
Mm.
That's fine. It has its place, but let's just keep this simple. Why is your heart rate ramping up? It's too fucking hard. Simple. Like it's too hard for whatever it is today. Like
Mm.
I ain't there today. I'm not recovered enough. I'm knackered. I'm 40 minutes into this run, and what was 140 is now becoming 150, and it's quickly creeping up because my body's telling me this is I've got to work harder. This has got to work harder for you to keep operating at this pace. So
Mm.
you have two options: you go with the ramp and you keep getting harder and harder and harder,
Mm-hmm.
or you drop the pace and level it out. And that might mean that you need to drop the pace by a minute per kilometre.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter because you've hit the goal of what we wanted to do today. Yeah, maybe I didn't hit the pace that I wanted to hit today.
Mm.
Okay, let's track back. Why I didn't hit the pace today? What's going on in training? What's going on in lifestyle? What have I done the last few days? There's always an answer. There's always an answer you can track it back to.
Yeah.
Don't be a slave to your watch. Don't be a slave to anything, man.
Mm.
You are in control.
Mm. So you wouldn't recommend using that data to benchmark?
You can use data to benchmark 100%, but it depends on what the goal is for training.
Yeah.
So this one specifically, if you're going into a run and you want it to be zone 2,
Mm-hmm.
and zone 2 heart rate for you is between 140 and 150,
Mm-hmm.
just random numbers, and you start creeping up over 150, you got to slow down.
Yeah.
Simple. You got to make it easier. Like you need to get that heart rate back in that zone. And if you're running along, you're like 152, I can't go any slower. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Walk, jog, plod, stop. Like you can, and it's really hard to do. As an ego thing, it's hard. It's really hard, man.
Mm.
But you can. You can always adjust. You just gotta head a minute, take yourself out of perspective, and actually look at what you're doing and think about what you're doing. That's why I say to people, just stop for a minute, just
Yeah.
have a look at what's going on, and just fucking own it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Yeah, I think I would have stayed. Do you know, I'd have just walked it, but it was getting late and I got lost. So I was like, fuck this,
That's
I'm
fair.
running back. I'm gonna have to
That's
pick
fair.
it
That's
up.
fair.
Talk to me about the podcast. How's that going? How long's that been going for? Just give us an overview.
Yeah, so the Trackster podcast is a branch of Trackster. And I've been involved in Trackster for a year now. The podcast, I've been involved for probably 9 months. It's been a little bit on and off. It's not been overly consistent. It's not our main line of work, or hasn't been. But we're very lucky that we're able to access a lot of elite athletes, coaches, and experts and get some really cool people on. But at the moment, the podcast is audio, and then we upload video clips to YouTube and Instagram. But yesterday I went to look at we've got a studio. We've got a new studio that we're having, a podcast studio, and we'll be starting there in 3 weeks. And
Nice.
once we're in there, that's when we're going to be doing proper long form episodes across YouTube. A bit more of a running show. So we'll be having guests introduced for interviews, but we'll also be having segments about what's going on in the running world, news, updates, gear reviews, things like that. Just to take it up a level, because what I used to podcast and we do it all audio, and if I'm honest, I get bored. I really get bored just sitting and talking like to guests all the time through a screen. I want to connect with people. I want to actually sit across the table and have a chat and bounce off each other and use that energy. That's, for me, I'm a podcast fan. I watch podcasts. I don't listen to them. So it's classic, isn't it? Like, that's the content I like doing. So that's the content I want to produce. So yeah, we'll be doing that soon.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, yeah, you're based in London, so you've got you're based in the right place to get people coming to you, aren't you? I would like, long term goal for me would be the same, to do it in person. I did a few in person ones, or I went on site, and at the moment where I'm at with it, because this is a part time thing, it's not providing me an income at the moment. I found it was just too much of a lift for me at the moment on my own. Like, I loved it face to face, but I'm thinking about the camera, I'm thinking about the sound, I'm doing all the roles. So I'm at like this stage where I'm like, just reps, just get the conversations out there, make connections, start building up, and then redress in the in the future, next year or whatever, whether I start doing more in person again.
Yeah, well, to say I'm guilty of stressing over the finer elements, not just podcasts, but any content. Whatever we put out, I always look at it and I'm like, that's not good enough. That's not as good as so and so. That doesn't sound as good. And use an example, just the other day, they're up the mountain in St. Moritz, so I'm interviewing these athletes, and I've planned all the equipment. I've got everything. I've got my tripod, I've got my lights, I've got my mics. It's great. And first interview I did, the microphone that the guest was using was working. My microphone didn't sync, so my audio was shit, and theirs was fine. But we can still make it work. And after the interview, I realised, and I'm stressing, it's like World War Three, mate. It's like the world ended. I'm like, fucking mic weren't synced. This whole thing is a joke. We're so amateur. I look to my left, and there's another media outlet who are same sort of size as us, and there's a geezer there filming an interview, holding his iPhone just like that. And I looked across and I was like, why am I stressing over something like this when in actual fact the priority is getting the interview? That's the priority. Yep. We can worry about the audio quality, the video quality, and all that later. If someone comments on it saying this audio is shit, okay, how can we invest in making sure it's better, because our audience clearly care about that? But they actually care most about hearing what that guest wants to say. So with this podcast studio, we will start with a tripod and an iPhone and the mics we've got and the lights we've got, and we'll buy, basic lights and whatever. We'll do an episode, we'll watch it, and if something's really shit and it's harming the audience's experience, then we'll say, okay, let's invest some money in a better camera or an agency or whatever. But fundamentally, we've been in the position of putting it off, keeping with audio because it's controllable and it's far easier for us. But I'm just getting to the point of like that. Let's just just go for it. Rip the plaster off and go for it, because that's the only way we're going to improve.
Yeah, for sure. I think you've got to, like you say, focus on the magic, which is the conversation, and just everything else doesn't really matter. At least that's what it seems like to me. Focus on the conversations, focus on the connections, and then the other stuff will fall in, and you can address that along the way. And I've got to a point where I'm kind of like, I don't even really. I used to ask for feedback, but I've stopped doing that now, because I know kind of if it's gone well or if it's not gone well, and it's like, it's got to be enjoyable to me. So it's
it has.
That's like the one filter.
It has to be enjoyable for you.
Am I enjoying myself?
No, it does. It has
yes
to be.
or no?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The thing is, it's a hobby, isn't it? Like, you can very quickly differentiate between this is a business and this is a hobby. Sometimes there's a crossover,
Mm,
fine. But if something's a business, then you serve your audience. If something's a hobby, you serve yourself.
mhm,
Because you do hobbies for your own enjoyment.
mhm,
As soon as it switches to a business, you then ask yourself, who's the target audience? Who's our prime customer? What do they want? Deliver on that. You know, I'm always about delivering on that, of course, because business is business. But I also like to include doing stuff that I enjoy doing as well to make it fun and not make it seem like it's just
mm,
mundane. Um, it doesn't help that in this world of media, I work within media in loads of different facets, but I'm the most fucking technically unsound person in the planet. Like, I'm such a dinosaur. I know fuck all about mics. I know nothing about cameras. I can't edit for shit. I don't do. I just I have no knowledge on that. So, but I can talk. That's my
mm,
skill. I can do the talking bit. So at the moment for tracks, they're like, I don't do any editing. I don't do any of that. I have to use other people. And luckily, one of the other owners is a good editor. But at some point, we're going to be like, nah. If we want to take it to that next level, we are going to have to buy a new camera. We are going to have to pay an editor because I am not passionate about going on YouTube and watching 30 hours of editing videos because
mm.
I'm not asked. I don't, like if someone said, here's a pill, you take it and you're an amazing editor. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I'd rather just pay someone if we can pay someone that's passionate about it.
Yeah, see, because I'm quite technical, so I know stuff about sound, and yeah, I can turn my hand to a lot of technical stuff. And but when like in the first like year of the podcast, it would really hold me back because I had such this broad skill set, which is helpful. But also, I'm trying to edit, and I'm doing this, and I'm trying to like perfection was just taking all the joy out of it. So it's like I had to
Mm.
really. It's almost like taking ego out of it, even though I know how to put together a perfectly done podcast with snazzy sounds and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to totally 80/20 it and go, bish bash bosh, check. Oh, is there anything I need to take out? A couple of bits here, right? It's going out. And that's it because quantity in this example, quantity is better than quality, in my opinion, because that's in a weird way
Yep.
allows for the quality to get more quality out of it. And it's only sort of there was one episode where I ended up cancelling publishing, but I'd sent someone a copy of it and they sent it to like a film producer or something that they knew, and I had all this list of like criticisms and I think you should do this, and I was like, yeah, this is totally you've got the wrong end of the stick here. This isn't a movie production. This is a chat, which we happen to have video on,
Yeah.
and yeah, but also it's good feedback for me because I have to communicate that better so people understand
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
and have the expectations. Um, what about supplementation? Like, what's your sorry, supplement said nutrition, sorry, but we'll talk about supplementation. What's your sort of broad approach to nutrition, some fundamentals that seem to work?
Um, very lucky that I've been brought up with food, so I've never like dad was a chef, so dad always made us eat natural foods. Really, I've never really eaten processed stuff too much. The only processed shit I'd eat would be from like if I'd had sweets or just a snack on the go or
Mm,
whatever. Never would I have processed food on my plate for a meal that I cooked. So that was embedded in me, ingrained in me for
mm-hmm.
years. And then when I moved out of home at 18, like I had fuck all money. So like I'd just go to the supermarket late at night and get all the reduced fish and reduced meat and shit and just cook that with a load of broccoli and some fucking potatoes, like the blandest
Mm.
meals because it was like I don't eat for flavour, I eat for productivity. So
Functional food.
yeah, like 100%. And luckily I actually really enjoy bland
Yeah.
food. Like now I love good food and I appreciate uh the culinary arts, but I do love a plain chicken breast and rice. I know it's boring, I
Yeah.
just do. Um, but Yeah, man, I cook very simply. I eat relatively clean. And I also appreciate the need for balance. I do, I don't call it a treat, but if there's something that I want, I'll go and eat it. Um, I train hard,
Mm.
so I'm very lucky at the moment. The output's good, so I don't tend to. I'm not going to get out of shape rather than a takeaway once a week. But since I would say so I'm 29 now. Since I turned 25, 26, I would say that I've struggled with my weight the most. In the sense of, I knew I super lightweight as a distance athlete or as an endurance athlete. 4 kilos is a lot. It's like when you're on that line, um, and it's very hard to lose those kilos because you're so close to, being on the edge of being underweight, already. And when I was at university running my fast track times, I would say like 69, 70 kilos. And for the majority of last year, I was 75, 76. So I'm quite a heavier guy. I'm quite tall. I stand alongside runners that would be 10 kilos lighter than me because of their body structure. Fine. When I'm at 68, 69 kilos, I'm like lean, like almost to the point where it's like you need a meal.
Mm.
So last few years, I've just been trying to understand, okay, is that a healthy weight? Is that a good weight for me? Am I happy with how I'm feeling, how I'm looking? And when I train for the marathon, obviously there's a case of my training hours are going to go up. So I need to consume more calories to counteract that and balance that. And I've never struggled with eating. If anything, I can eat and eat, and I never, I can eat everything basically. I've always overate, to be honest. Um, but during training, there was definitely a couple of times where I generally weigh myself every morning. It's just a habit. And after a big session or a big long run, I would just find that I've lost weight quite quickly, which is normal in the sense of, yes, you've burned a shit ton of calories in one sitting of exercise. But if I've gone and burned 2,000, 3,000 calories, I'll make sure that I eat a shit ton after it and hydrate. Yet I was finding that the next morning, I was like, I've lost a kilo or whatever. Now, obviously, I know you've got to take your average weight across a week and it fluctuates and all that sort of stuff. So I get that it's take it with a pinch of salt. Um, but the marathon for me was actually a really good opportunity for me to train harder, train more than I've trained previously, and use food for fuel, learn about the side of fueling and how that benefits your performance, and almost experiment using myself and get myself to a weight that I felt was perfect for my performance. And I started training for marathon at the start of this year, 74, 75. At the moment, I weigh, this morning I weighed in at 71 and a half. So I'm super lean at the
Mm.
moment, but I'm like, this is a good weight. Like for me, it's like bang on race weight. I don't need to be lighter. I'm good to go. I can still eat a shitload. Um, and like that sort of needle of your natural body weight where it's comfortable
Mm.
has shifted from me from 74 to 72. So now I'm just like slightly around that 72 mark and I feel healthy and I feel good. So yeah, waffled a bit about weight there, but in summary, I I eat naturally. I eat as much as I want in a way, and I always ensure that I'm fueled for training. So that and I tailor my meals around that. So I always eat breakfast before a morning workout, fuel for that session. I'll always ensure that for my second session of the day or whatever I've got later on, I'll ensure that I'll have a pre-train something. Could be a carb drink, could be a meal, could be a snack, whatever it may be, so that I know that, well, fueling, tick.
Mm. And what I'm guessing, do you calorie count or not?
Nah,
No,
fuck that,
same.
man. Nah, I don't. I don't want to like dog anyone that does calorie count because I know it's
Mm-hmm.
really useful for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. Fine, but I'm 29. I'm I'm fit as a fiddle generally compared to most of the population. I don't have any conditions, medical conditions, anything like that, and like I don't really need to watch my
No.
calories. The only time I need to watch what I'm eating is if I got injured for 6 weeks. Then maybe
Mm.
just don't eat cake every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if you can get away with not calorie counting, it's awesome. Like I've done bits like over, back in the day when I maybe used to struggle a bit with weight and stuff, but now I think that's the thing as well. If you train a lot, it's awesome because you just eat what the hell you want.
Yeah.
And if you eat
Uh-huh.
whatever the hell you want and make sure it's whole foods with, like you say, maybe a few sweetie treaties in there, then you're going to be feeling well. So yeah, I think we share some of those fundamentals as well. But I sometimes, like you say, yeah, if I'm not training, and then you're like, oh wow, and cause you're so used to
Yeah,
just
legit,
stuffing your
mate. I
face with
know.
whatever. Yeah,
It's like when I come back from holiday, like if I go away for a holiday for a week and I don't, even if I train out there, but like maybe I'll train every other
hmm
day, or I'll just rather than training workouts and 2 sessions a day, or whatever, maybe I'll just run for 45 minutes every day. So then, like, my energy output is far lower than it normally would be. Yeah, I'm on holiday, so I'm smashing beers, I'm
hmm
smashing fucking buffets and everything. I get home, I'm like, wow, I put 4 kilos on in
yeah.
a week. Wow.
I think a lot of it as well. Like I noticed when I went away recently, you sat down all the time, buses,
Yeah.
aeroplanes. So yeah,
Beach.
exactly. So it's going to have an effect. So I presume you run with gels, yeah,
Yeah. For the marathon stuff, yeah, I've started using gels. Yeah.
and any like specific types that you go for? Do you have them with electrolytes and stuff, or
Um. So I had to change it up because I started medication for ADHD at the start of the year, and it's advised that you don't take caffeine on them.
right?
So I yeah, I don't use caffeine gels just because it just says against it, to be honest. But I use the Morton
hmm
gels, which have a level of salts and sodium in there. Um, they're not like the same size as sport ones where it's like electrolyte energy gel. I didn't say that on there, but they have
Yeah.
that in them. So yeah, I use the Morton gels. I use the Morton carb drink as well. Good thing about the Morton stuff is that they've got different levels. So they've got the 160 carb drink, which is 40 grams of carbs per sachet, which is roughly 500 milliliters of drink. And then the 320 is 80 grams in the same 500 milliliters. It's obviously a thicker
hmm
drink. But and then I also use the carb bars, which are 40 grams. Um, and within the gels, they have the gel that's 25 grams carbs, but they have a new gel or a newer gel that's 40 grams of carbs in that gel. So I didn't think I'd be this like bang on with the sort of
mm
fueling side of things, but I had to be eventually. But I nailed it in the sense of like if I'm doing a morning session, I know exactly what I need to take prior to that workout in terms of like boiled porridge, maybe half a bagel. But then I also know I need to take, right, if I'm doing a big session, I need to take a 320 carb mix, and I need to take X amount of gels throughout the session, maybe a carb bar, whatever. And I've started practicing that from the moment I started marathon training for all of my runs. And I got a lot of advice from a lot of friends that are good marathon runners and coaches. And they basically just said, practice as much as you can, overload your body with carbohydrates in terms of prep, like
mm.
fueling and priming the system so that you can train your stomach and body to utilize those carbohydrates. So anything over 6 miles of running, so anything over 45 minutes, I was taking fueling. So if I did an hour run, I'd have a gel, even if it was a jog, because I was just training my body to get used to this stuff. On my long runs, I was having a gel every 30 minutes. I was taking the carb drinks, I was doing everything so that, yeah, to be honest, mate, it was an absolute breeze in terms of stomach acclimatation. I didn't suffer at all because I think my body was just so used to gels and
Yeah.
carbs.
And what about
That's it.
have you just gone like try and error with that, just finding out what works, or have you been like slightly scientific with like smashing in X amount before?
Um, so obviously I've got a lot of experience with telling athletes what they should be doing in the guidelines. So like, I tell an athlete, right, you need to be having X amount of grams of carbs per hour, depending on your body weight, blah, 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 whatever. So I had those guidelines as a coach. So I started there. Then I spoke to loads of my sort of close friends that are runners and marathon runners and that certain coaches, and started to gain a sort of abundance and advice, and certain things started to align. Um, and then I just started. So basically, my rules of thumb were 80 grams of carbs per hour per exercise. I weigh 70, so I wanted to try and do a little bit more, because the newer science that's coming out of things like the NN running team in Africa, they have shitloads of carbs in their training during training. They have like way over body weight per kilo. Like, if it's a 60 kilo runner, he could be having up to 100, 120 grams of carbs an hour, like fucking insane amounts. But if he's able to use those carbohydrates and he's running, incredible. So for me, I wanted to try and get something in the middle where I was able to utilize as many grams as possible. So before sessions, like workouts or before long runs, my breakfast would be bowl porridge, a bagel, and a coffee. Roughly like, I can't remember how many grams it was, but it was always the same measures. And then I would have a 320 drink mix, which was 80 grams. And then on the way to training, I would sometimes have a carb bar as well. So that would then add up to X amount of carbs pre-session. And then from the moment I start, I would be 80 grams of carbs per hour. So only 240 gram gels an hour, one every 30 minutes. But what actually it worked out to be is that from the moment I've woke up to the moment I start running, I've been doing 80
I was
grams
just going to
of
say,
carbs
is that what
per
you're
hour.
doing? Yeah. Right.
So it's like, it's slightly different because you're obviously
Yeah,
having a
you're
meal,
loading it in a different
but
way, but
the
it's still hitting the
porridge,
same.
yeah, that's it. The porridge, the bagel, the drink spread out, the first gel, the second gel, and I'd practiced that from the first session, and the breakfast I was having in the morning was the exact breakfast I had on race day, so it wasn't a problem. The only thing I fucked up on race day, because I did everything bang on, my carb load was brilliant, but on the day, I'd been practicing having my first gel 15 minutes before the start of sessions and races, so that then my first gel, so I could keep on that sort of 40 grams every half hour. But I forgot the gel. I left it back at the hotel, so I only had my in race ones. So I was like, oh shit. But it weren't a problem because I'd luckily sort of like overloaded a little bit of breakfast. So I was only probably about 20 grams short of what I would have been. So it didn't affect me at all, but it was like, fuck, one small mistake.
Yeah.
Shit.
How do those? So talk to me a little bit about, first off, like the carb drinks. So what type of carbohydrate are they? Are they like, presumably it's not just a watered down version of a gel?
Fucking hell, mate. I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm pretty confident it's not a watered down version of a gel, but I actually don't know the exact answer to that. What I can tell you is that I've used Morton, I've used Science and Sport, and I've used OTE as well. OTE are a brand based up in the north, and they've all got similar products. They've got the carb drinks, they've got the carb gels, and then they've got Morton don't have a hydration product like a
Right.
tablet. But anyway, you'll find that a lot of the gels have got the exact same ingredients. So the Beta Fuel Science and Sport carb drink is ingredient for ingredient as the Morton one. The only difference is that the Beta Fuel has flavorings. So like you literally put the packet by packet, it's exactly the same. They just have flavorings. So that one just tastes as orange or whatever. So that's what I can tell you. A lot of them are similar, but where Morton they say they're better, is that the texture of their gel is something to do with fucking hydrogel or something. I don't know. But they say that the texture of the gel helps the absorption in the stomach. And to be fair, the texture of a Morton gel is completely different to anyone else. Like it's thick, it's almost like old school hair gel. It's kind of like that. So you almost chew it in a way. So that's their USP, if you like. But I just found that Morton for me it goes down easy. I consume it fine, and I suppose peace of mind that the best in the world use it. So if it's good enough for them, good enough for me.
Yeah, I started making my own actually at my last for my last High Rocks.
Really?
Yeah, like nothing super fancy, but I was basically getting like raw honey, with some beetroot juice and salts, and that seems to have worked quite well. So if you see a guy going around a High Rocks with looks like a bag of blood in his like front pocket, that's me.
Actually,
Uh, but yeah, it worked quite well because I was actually struggling with cramp before that, and stupidly at the High Rocks events, they've got a Red Bull station and they've got a water station. They don't have anything else.
nice.
So there's no chance to get any actual electrolytes in. So I was like, right, if I can make kind of like a salty kind of mix up and then smash in the plain water, that's sort of
That should be all right.
so yeah, it's sort of it's been working okay. But I have been thinking, when I'm going to do a marathon next year, that whether I need to switch to something more specific for the task.
Mm.
But we'll see. Thank you for that. What about things like pain when running? So, for example, well, for me it used to be my knees, then I started strength training, then it went into my back. So that's the thing at the moment that I'm trying to manage is yeah, so I wonder if you had any sort of cues for running form for that type of thing, and any other similar ones that you hear a lot.
Yeah, running form's a topic that's discussed a lot, of course. I am in the camp. I am in the camp of there is no perfect
Mm.
running form because you and I would argue any biomechanics specialist to the day I die about this, because how can you say that a running form is perfect when there are the fastest runners in the world are the exact opposite? There are too many physical examples of different running forms that are against the narrative of the perfect running form that excel at their sport, i.e., Helena Beery just won Boston Marathon. She's probably going to win the Olympics. She's probably the best female athlete of all time across the track, road, and
Mm.
cross country. She has the worst form you've seen. Like, her arm carriage is horrendous. Like, there's so many things wrong with her form if you go along the guidelines of this is the perfect running form. Paula Ratcliffe, fastest British female runner, marathon runner of all time. Horrendous running form again if you go via those guidelines. I could go on and on and on. There are so many examples of runners that don't have that perfect running form. They heel strike, they cross over their arms, they tuck their heads, they lean forward too much, they overstride, whatever. Loads of things. So I am in the camp of there is no perfect running form. What you should be doing is run free and run naturally, run what feels natural to you. If you succumb to an injury and a specialist, i.e. physio or a biomechanics specialist, says, I think in my experience that if you was to alter this, this would help, then you can start going down the route of maybe changing up your running form. Until that happens, I don't think you need to change it. I really, really don't. I think just run free, run what feels natural, because that is literally like what our ancestors did. They ran. They didn't have a physio telling them that's not the right
Mm.
form. So when it comes to changing your running form, and when you are looking at changing things, you have got to be so careful, because the smallest adjustment has massive implications when you think of how many steps you're taking during a run and a marathon. So hear this thing, oh man, we live in this world now where there's these
Yeah.
buzzwords: cadence, heart rate, fucking zone two, whatever. Cadence is the one that's thrown around a lot at the moment. You need to have a cadence of 180 per minute or whatever. Well, you don't. Like, you still could get to the finish without 180. Like, if you're 177, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
180 might be all right for Eliud Kipchoge, but you aren't Eliud Kipchoge. Your bone structure is different. Your leg length is different. Your body is completely different. Like this, you're not him. So I think that you need to be confident in your own mind. Do I feel natural? Do I feel free? Do I feel like the way I am moving is helping my energy forwards, helping my running, propelling me forwards? If you can honestly sit there and say, no, I feel like the way I land slows me down, then go and do something about it. Don't just see an article or see a runner and think, oh, I'm going to try and run like them. That's my honest opinion on running form. And I've got a lot of experience in it because I've been working on my own personal running form for a few years now. And I've changed things and I've worked with specialists. And I'm finding now that tailored strength training and load management and actually trusting in how my body moves naturally, not the little monkey on my shoulder telling me, oh, you need a high cadence, is actually what helps me get that marathon PB. Or contributed to it at least.
Yeah, it's something I'm always, it's always in my head, and I'm going, I feel like I'm always making these little tweaks, and I suppose it's trial and error, and there's, which is good in a way, but like you say, it's risky if you're doing it. You don't want to do it in a race. You want to be doing something that you've drilled over and over again, right?
I just think, I yeah, I hate to be a coach that goes against the narrative all the time. But I really hate the narrative of
Mm.
today's running world. I literally despise it. That's why I don't coach online anymore. I just fucking hate it. And got sick of having conversations with runners about needless shite that you see on social media, because there are a big proportion of runners that divert away from the things they should be focusing on and the fundamentals of improving as an endurance athlete to focus on these little nitty gritty things that look cool on socials. And whilst they're fanning around all these things, the actual fundamentals of becoming a better runner and a better endurance athlete, whether you're heel struck or not, are being forgotten about and are not being worked on enough. And the overall result of that is that you are limiting your ability. And again, that's why the elites are so good, because they just turn up, they're consistent, they do the training, they don't get involved in all this fancy shit. Yeah, that's why they are as good as they are, because they do it for 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it's yeah, that sort of stuff isn't easy to clip up and put into a reel and make it sound sexy.
No, it's not. It's not. No, it's not sexy. It's not cool, but um, it is the reality, and it's been proven for decades. Like proven and proven and proven. The fundamentals don't veer. Um, like, that's why these conversations are useful, and that's one thing I've used as a coach. I speak to other coaches, chat to athletes. You can read and research and things like that, but experiences are key. Experiences of coaches and athletes are really important because they are real life trials. They're not anything that's fabricated. Um, yeah, I think my biggest pet peeve at the moment is top five, top five, just five as well. Top five workouts or top five tips to run a faster
Yeah.
5K. And like, I read them, and my first response or first thing that I think is like, well, that's so generalized. And secondly, there is no appreciation for the fact that the 5K is an endurance event and you are talking about doing sprints. Great. What if I can't even run a kilometre without stopping? Fucking 20-metre sprint's going to benefit me, innit? So I just wish the world we lived in and the social media bubble was a little bit would burst a little bit. But I have to blame magazines and shit for that because they start it all. Runners' World fault, their fault.
Yeah, and well, and there's an interesting interplay going on at the moment with like podcasts as well, because podcasts were started as long form things to allow context. This is part of like the name of the podcast, Awaken Out of Context, is like so many things are taken out of context and it's like awaken to like the like real life, and real life can't be put into a 90-second reel. And all your
No.
experience of running and coaching and everything also cannot be put into a 90-second clip. And it's like, but everyone wants everyone wants the pill that, what pill do I need to take? What's the thing I need to do? What's the most high leverage thing? And there is times for that. Yes. But quite often, you just need to do the work, and you need to understand, like you say, go through the work, do the fundamentals, and don't take everything and assume that it'll work for you, right?
I tell you what, here's a clip. You can clip this one. My top 3 tips to improve as an endurance runner.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, go for a run. Simple. Second one, do a cross-country race. A really hard cross-country course. If you're thinking, I don't know where I can find one, you can join your club, go and do a cross-country course. You will soon find your weaknesses within your running, and you will quickly realise, shit, I need to run a bit more. I need to train a bit more. I'm not very stable. My balance is shit. I'm gassed. That's the environment that will expose you, not a little 5K around Battersea Park. And number 3, run with runners that are better than you. Join and mix with runners that are better than you, because you can bounce off of them, learn from their experiences, ask questions, figure out how they got to the level they are. If you want to get better running, those are the first 3 things I would do. I wouldn't even go near carbon plates. I wouldn't even worry about signing up to Strava. Just go for a run, because as soon as you go for that run, you're going to find something out. When you do that cross-country race, you're going to find something out. When you join those runners that are better than you, you're going to find shit out. And once you get that information, apply it to your own running and just repeat and develop that way.
Yeah. Yeah, fuck yeah. Just get some experience, go out there and just do it.
Experience is key. Yeah, literally, that's where the thing started with Nike. Just do it. It's
it really is, isn't
tagline ever. Just do it. Yeah, literally.
What about supplements? Have you got anything that you rely on? Anything to avoid?
I don't rely on too many supplements. No, I've never delved too far into it. I have a blood test every year, just to make sure my levels are all good. There's been a couple of times my iron's dropped pretty low, and I've been smashing mileage. So I've got on some iron supplements before from the chemist. There's a couple of supplements that float around the sort of running distance world from them for more sort of elite level, which are all totally above board, but they just help you top up certain levels like vitamin D and iron. I've tried things like beta-alanine and things like that, but I just wasn't consistent enough with the supplementation to warrant continuing taking it. So right now, the ones that I take magnesium before bed to use for the performance. It's fucking wicked. Like, I don't have a Whoop, but there are like loads of people that use Pillar that have Whoop, and they've all shown their recovery score improving. So I use that once or twice a day. That's just like a little tiny little mixture into about 200 milliliters of drink, and I have that before bed. And I take ADHD medication. That's the only supplement I need, mate. That's the one that gets me from A to B. So none to avoid, because if you're taking something that's legal and safe, then it's got a point. I think take it if it's got a reason. Take iron if you need levels. Take zinc if you need it for that. Whatever it is. But just don't take shit for the sake of it, I think.
So talk to me about the ADHD. Did you say you were diagnosed fairly recently?
Yeah, just December.
And what led you down that path? Like,
so I've had well, I don't know if I got it now. I did have it. I had depression for about 4 years. So from 2018 to 5 years actually. 2018 to 2023. I didn't know I had it until 2023. COVID didn't help. That hit me hard, pandemic, because running races stopped, and they were my outlet. They were not just a race, but support, be a fan. That was where I put my energy into. They stopped, so then I lost my way a bit. And and also was running a business that put a lot of pressure on me and stressed me out a lot. So that ground me down quite hard. And then when I met my partner in 2021, I told her obviously about some of my struggles and the way I feel, how my brain works. Not at that point knowing anything was wrong. And for a long time, it was a case of, is there actually anything wrong, or are you just like lazy, or are you just not quite? I don't know. Are you deluded? So eventually, it got to a point where it was apparent that I weren't. Like my temper got real bad. Couldn't control emotions. Was not really emotionally attached to anything. So then, she urged me to go and see a therapist. So I did 12 weeks of therapy, which was good. I only saw one therapist, so I only got like one experience, but it was good and it was bad. Some sessions I just thought were a waste of time.
Is
Other
that
sessions were useful.
psychotherapy or?
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
psychologist, yeah. So, and then like got to a point with the therapist where it was quite expensive and I wasn't in a great financial position at the time because that business I had closed. So I went through about 18 months of quite hard financial sort of like financial situation. So therapy was quite a burden on my finances. And then somehow my missus, she's a exercise physiologist, but she works a lot with psychiatrists and things like that and private clinics. And she just met this woman for her own work who was a psychiatrist. And she told her about me, and the woman said, "Oh, well, why don't you get him to come see me? Like, I'll give him a meeting for free. Like, he doesn't have to pay. Like, he's your partner. I'll talk to him." And she's £500 an hour
Wow.
to give you a bit of an idea. So she gave me that appointment for free. No one be able to afford her. And after 15 minutes of chatting to her, lovely lady, chatting away like I am now with you, a lot of energy. I'll always be a lot of energy in the room. And she went, "So yeah, you have ADHD, 100%, and you're clinically depressed." So I was like,
Really?
"Heck?"
Within 15
Like,
minutes?
what? Yeah, she just was like, she told me exactly what my strengths were. She was like, "You've got so much going for you. You're really impressive. Great. You're doing so much good stuff. The way you are is amazing. It's warm, blah, blah, blah. Your energy is fantastic. But I can see that is masking so much shirt." The ADHD thing didn't catch me off guard because for 6 to 8 weeks before then, me and my girlfriend were talking and she'd done a lot of research and it just sounded like I was going that way. But the depression thing, mate, that hit me like a bus because I was like, I ain't depressed. Nah, I ain't having that. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm sweet. But then I spoke to her about it, this psychologist, about what it actually means to be depressed, and it then started to hit home. And then a week later, she referred me to another doctor, and I got screened for ADHD and depression, and they diagnosed me then. And then and then I started medication in January for ADHD, not depression.
Right. Wow, that's yeah, I've never heard that before where someone has been able to sense it from the off. And that's interesting, isn't it? Like you said, and it was because of the way you were. She could tell you're masking, right? And so that was like a big telltale.
Yeah. It was that, and she also said that. Well, she also said I said to her that, which she was asking me a few questions and then letting me speak, and I said to her, I said, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on me in my life at that point to be really present in my relationship, be really present in my friendship group, be really present on social media and in my business. When in actual fact, I just want to be left alone. I just want to be left the fuck alone. I just want to go sit in a room by myself and watch telly and stay in bed. And she said that a massive telltale sign of clinical depression is that you want to find a name. And I went, yeah, I just like, even to my girlfriend, I was like, I literally want to go to the other side of the world by myself for a little while to just be with me. And like, obviously telling your girlfriend that for 4 years is hard to hear. Like, I can imagine it was pretty hard when it was hard. but yeah, was proactive about it. Went private, cost a lot of money, but it was the best investment I've ever made. I've been on the medication since January, and as I say, in December I was in a real shit position financially. I went traveling with my other missus, with my missus, not the other missus, with my girlfriend to Australia. Like used all my savings to go on this trip with her. And when we were on the flight back, 11-hour flight, whatever, I sat down and I said, right, tomorrow I'll start medication. I said, give me, I actually put this on Instagram caption recently. I said to her, give me the first quarter of the year, I'll give me to the end of March. And if these meds work and get my brain functioning how it has worked before and how I know it can, I will, this is my exact words, I will be postcodes clear of where we are now. Like, just give me 3 months and I will show you. And we're in May now. My April, like, this is crude, and I hate talking about money, but my was earned the most I've ever earned in a month ever, and my income is currently 10 times what it was than January this year,
Amazing.
monthly, and that is just down to graft and clear mind and just fucking pushing on.
Yeah, like being able to execute.
Just knowing the way. Like, I always knew what I wanted to get and the goals, and I knew what I could do work wise or whatever, but I couldn't. My brain couldn't figure out how to get there. Like, the goal may be, right, I want to work with X brand on X project, and I'll be like, I don't know, right, how do we do it? I don't know. Whereas now I'll be like, right, I want to work with Red Bull on their Wings for Life event, which is once a year. Right, okay, well, now I need to email that person because I know that person works for Red Bull and they'll be able to put me in touch with the other person. And I might need to email that first person 3 times. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a reminder on my calendar to do it every 2 weeks, and I'm going to get that person's contact. And I'm going to get that job. That's how my brain works now. In December, mate, I couldn't even send that first email. It's just so hard to explain, but that is my ADHD.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That it's like fucking just bog. It's horrible, man. It's hard to talk about it in the sense of like thinking back literally 6 months or whatever it is, but yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I'm glad you got sorted and you're starting to smash it in a sort of a monetary sense as well as everything else that you've been doing in your sport. Listen, I'm going to start to wrap this up now, but I wanted to ask you a few things. One thing in your coaching, like what's been your biggest coaching achievement, like proudest moment?
2019. I've been running coach now for just over 10 years, but 2019, I had an athlete who, there's two. 2019 or 2018, I had an athlete who fell pregnant. Just done a marathon, just done Berlin Marathon in September, and she wanted to do London Marathon in the following April. She did the Berlin Marathon, ran a personal best, happy as Larry. Found out she was pregnant, yada yada yada. Goes through the pregnancy through the winter, and she said to me, I still want to run the London Marathon. And I'm like, fuck, really? Put your feet up, love. Like, seriously? So I'm like, okay. Coaching wise, I'm a little bit out of depth here. Like, I never really coached anyone.
So just to clarify,
so
how many months pregnant would she be on the marathon? Like, yeah,
for London,
like 6 months or something.
Yeah, I think it was around that. Yeah.
Wow.
Anywho, so she's like, yeah, we're in London. So I'm like, okay, well, first of all, I need to make sure this is safe. About 4 weeks after that conversation, she had a miscarriage.
Oh.
So
fucking hell.
Horrendous. Just yeah, man, I wasn't like ready for that. That was horrible. And she said, I'm still doing London. I'm gonna channel this. I'm going to do it. So I'm like, fucking hell, love. I'm like, you don't have to do this. Like, come on, like, you don't have to. There's no pressure from me. Like, I'll be there if you need me. But if you just want to fucking chill or anything you need, just talk to me on the phone, whatever. She's like, nah, I'm going to do London. So she did it. She trained for it. She ran a PB. And that was just incredible for me because it was such a journey to not just be a running coach, but be a friend, be a support network, just be someone there who tested me as a coach. That was a good achievement. And then the second one was I coached an athlete who worked on an ICU unit in COVID, like proper frontline. She caught COVID 6 times and trained for a marathon throughout. She was working shifts, but as we know in the NHS during that time, they just work all the time. They'd finish and then just carry on for hours because COVID was mad. And she'd finish work middle of the night, early hours of the morning, go home. She's got 2 kids and a husband. She'd put on her running shit and go for a run in the middle of the night as a woman, night in London. Not great. She'd be doing proper training middle of the night, like mileage. And I'd wake up the next day and see it on the app that we use that she's uploaded her run at 3 a.m. And I'm like, inspiring, but beyond belief. I'm like, I'm moaning about having to get up at 9 o'clock for a run. Trained for the marathon, ran a PB. And it's like, some people are just built differently, man.
Yeah.
And that was inspiring. So that was my 2 best achievements, I say, as a coach. Not that I really actively did much, but just having those experiences was an achievement.
No, that's awesome. So what can we expect like from you in like the next sort of 5 years or something? Do you look that far out? What's over the horizon?
Yeah, I used to have like 5-10 year plans, but since the whole depression thing, I work on a yearly basis now. So just try and say, right, this year I'd like to do this, and then go from there. But this year I'm traveling a lot. It's the first time that I've been able to travel for athletics and sort of within my sport, which I'm really grateful about. And that's sort of across like influencer / trackster bits and pieces. But yeah, traveling a lot, loads of different countries and stuff like that. I'm doing the Berlin Marathon in September. I might do Valencia in December, as how Berlin goes. I'm going to the New York Marathon in November, just again on a work thing. So like, what to expect is really just saying yes to a lot of stuff and just taking opportunity and just talking about sport at as many events as possible. That's all I have to do. And try and develop Trackster. And that's really it.
You're in a yes phase. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Say yes and just run around the world.
So cool.
That's the idea.
All right. And before we wrap things up, where should people go to find your stuff?
Okay, so it's onlyfans.com / Big Daddy D.
Do you know, I had someone from OnlyFans on last week.
So,
yeah.
Oh, really?
A woman.
Was it a woman or a dude?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Did she tell you how much she was earning?
She didn't. I mean, I wasn't specific enough to ask, but I imagine it's a fair whack.
Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that are on it.
Yeah.
And really well. So play, man. All right. Put bread on the table. There's worse ways. Like, there's worse ways people are earning money. Yeah, to follow me, Instagram is at Lloyd Kempson, LLOYD Kempson, KEMPSON. And then you can follow Trackster, which is Trackstar, TRACKSTAA. That's our company Instagram. That's if you're into running or track and field or athletics, and all your news needs are there. And then we have the Trackster podcast, which is on Spotify, Apple, podcast platforms. And we're on YouTube as well. So you can, if you want to see my face on different platforms.
Awesome. Right, mate. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. And
thanks, mate. Really appreciate it too.
We stay in touch.
Thanks for having me on.
Have a good day.
Yeah, bro. Thanks, mate. I'll see you soon. See you, mate.